He had an epidural hematoma caused by a skull fracture from when he fell from that bunk bed.
More now on the 12-year-old Easton Oliverson, who suffered a devastating head injury after falling off a bunk bed. This happened before the Little League World Series. What impact will that injury have on Easton in the immediate future and long term? Earlier, I spoke to Dr. Frita Fisher. Dr. Frita, good to see you. It was touch and go for a little while there. Doctors saying when he came in the ER, they're used to seeing different levels of how bad things can be, and he was one of the worst, giving the dad just a half hour that his son would live, and then he turned for the better. He is in recovery. Is it the brain swelling that makes this so severe at the time, where they weren't sure if he would survive it?
Yes, Susan, and it's actually multifactorial. He had an epidural hematoma caused by a skull fracture from when he fell from that bunk bed. When you have an epidural hematoma, you get bleeding from an artery, usually the middle meningeal artery in the brain. And so in between that top covering of the brain and the skull, you have blood that is just filling and filling. Well, when you think about the skull, Susan, it doesn't expand. And so there's nowhere for the brain to go. It continues to swell. And if it continues to swell, it can cause a herniation, meaning that your brainstem stops working and you can stop breathing and you die. For him, it looks like his bleeding was quite severe and he was really on the verge of death.
The father tearing up, and of course his whole family worried about that and saying they're so blessed and they're expecting ups and downs here. He does have some facial swelling, of course, which is interfering with his eyesight, but that's very different, correct, from different swelling depending on where it is. So facial swelling, the doctors say, could even get worse.
It could get worse and it could continue to impede his vision, and it could get worse before it gets better. It really is quite miraculous that he had this fall on Monday. By Wednesday, he was already reportedly extubated. The breathing tube was out. And by Thursday, he was sitting up feeding himself. It usually takes much longer, and that's if patients survive. So already he has exceeded the typical expectation. This facial swelling, while alarming, especially in this young kid who's not able to see, will likely get better. But there are so many other things. Right now, I think we're all excited that he has survived, that he can eat, that he can drink, that he can express himself. But the road to his recovery is not over because there are, unfortunately, multiple complications that could follow.
We are thinking of him and his family during this time. Dr. Frita Fisher, thanks.
My pleasure.